Now, even though I'm personally highly against buying into different stocks or ETFs, primarily to farm yield and generate high amounts of income without any recollection to things like underlying strategy, objective, or even the actual price of the ETF or stock. Because in the past, I personally have been burnt on multiple different yield traps, so these days I try to stay away from anything that offers a rather large starting yield, because a lot of times it just comes with too much risk. But over time, as the months and years have played out, there's actually multiple different high yielding or even ultra high yielding investments that might offer what seems like an impossible high yield from the start, but actually have offered a positive total return and have not even decayed in share price, etc. Now, because of this, even though I would consider myself somewhat of a dividend growth focused investor that wants to invest in a different single stocks or ETFs that are going to pay me dividends as well as pay me more and more income over time, there are a certain few names that I also invest into that are primarily in this portfolio to generate me more and more income consistently, which is driving me up closer and closer to my goal as of right now of $7,700 per month in dividends. So in this video, we're going to go through 5 of my current favorite high yielding or ultra high yielding ETFs that I've been buying consistently as of recently and that are making my dividend income on a monthly and yearly basis skyrocket like no other. Now, even though these ETFs are all high yield, they, like I said, all offer a positive total return, making them good investments long term, even with that massive yield. So if you want to see which ones I'm talking about, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into the first one. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the markets. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. So the first high yielding ETF that I've been buying a lot of as of recently and over the last year, to be fair, is SPYI, the NEOS S&P 500 high income ETF. This is one that I've been buying now for a while. I wasn't necessarily sure about it in the early days. Although the strategy and objective seem very solid, I still want to see how things are going to play out. But so far so good with SPYI. This ETF on the max time frame is up around 6.64%. On the 1 year, it's up 8.21%. And honestly, with an ETF like this that offers north of an 11% starting yield, this ETF, in my opinion, does not even need to trade upwards at all. And this is because for me personally, if I'm buying into an ETF that's more high income focused, I wouldn't mind if it just traded sideways for the most part and paid me a nice juicy 10, 11, or 12% per year in distributions. Now, speaking of this ETF's distributions, every single month since inception, we're talking like 48 cents upwards to 55 cents. Very consistent also, which is going to make things nice and organized in your dividend tracker, because if SPYI paid 48 or 49 cents every single month since inception, you can kind of assume that unless something crazy happens or unless something changes inside the fund, it's probably going to continue to do so. Now, the way that something like this can definitely help you increase your monthly income, obviously, very fast. This ETF as of right now costs around $51-52 per share. And if this ETF as of right now, at least consistently, has paid anywhere from 48 to 55 cents per share, that means that for every single share this one that you buy for $50 or so, you're going to be getting a 50-cent distribution, more or less, on the up and coming month. Now, I like SPYI at least so far because the ETF has been trading now for over 2 years. It's done really well during different market conditions, and over time, it's consistently paid massive distributions to investors. So as far as a higher income focused ETF, that's going to pay you a ton, but you're not going to have to sacrifice much. At least it doesn't look like so as of yet. This is definitely one of my favorites. Another super high yielding one that I have been buying a little bit more as of recently, and this one's a little bit more risky than my normal taste, but ZIVB, the -1x short VIX term future strategy ETF. This ETF has a different strategy than normal ETFs you're probably aware of. This ETF shorts the volatility index, so as long as the VIX stays low and stays calm, this ETF will probably keep trading up and to the right like it has. Now, this ETF, at least so far, seems like an endless money glitch. It pays a massive distribution, and not to mention the ETF is up 34%, and this is since around April of 2023. Now again, this ETF is a riskier one in my opinion, and this is a very small position in my portfolio, and just for my risk tolerance, this would never be a large position whatsoever. But at least so far since inception, this ETF for the most part has paid us investors holding on to it around 48-49 cents every single month other than the very first payouts, which is giving investors around a 25% yield. A 25% yield, a 48 or 49 cent payout for an ETF that costs under $20 per share. Now, is this ETF going to remain very stable long term? And is it going to be able to continue to pay out to what it's been paying out historically? I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. But at least so far, I've been utilizing a few shares of this ETF every now and then just to raise my monthly dividend income up, and also I'm up on my shares, which is a bonus. Another one of my newer favorites that is definitely helping my dividend income, distribution income move up significantly is SPYT, the Defiance S&P 500 Target Income ETF. I've talked about this one a little bit more frequently as of recently, and this is because as time goes on, just watching how some of these newer ETFs trade, it sort of gives you a better idea of how things can look in the future. Although, of course, a lot of these newer ETFs, these newer interesting strategy ETFs have not really been through the market conditions that we're really going to have to see how things play out long term. But at least so far, SPYT has traded basically sideways. It opened up back in March at around 20 bucks. It's still trading at around $20 per share. Now you might be saying, well, that's not really all that much growth, obviously, but this ETF has a 20% yield as of right now, a $20 ETF that pays around 33 cents consistently, at least so far as distributions go. Now, again, I do think that ETFs like this are probably going to be stress tested within the next year or two if we see massive amounts of volatility. But at least so far, this ETF has been very solid in my portfolio. And again, not the largest position whatsoever, obviously, but still a nice ETF sort of on the side that's really raising my income significantly with just a relatively small amount of money invested into it. Now, the next one is sort of controversial because SVOL has actually decayed a little bit in price. Now, my only caveat to this is that I started buying SVOL in this range. So since I started buying SVOL, this ETF has basically been trading sideways more or less. And not to mention, SVOL also just recently lowered their distribution to 28 cents from the 30-cent distribution that we've seen for a while now. Now, there's two ways to look at this one. On one side, you could say, well, still with a 28-cent distribution for an ETF that costs around 21, 22 bucks per share, that's still like 14, 15% yield. Not bad whatsoever. Or you could, of course, look at SVOL and say, look, this ETF that shorts the volatility index, although the strategy seems pretty sound, the ETF has been trading down to the right, and also now the distributions are getting lower. Now, this is exactly the reason on why, even though I do own SVOL and I still would possibly buy some shares on buy the dip opportunities, this ETF, along with a lot of the other ultra high yielders that yield anywhere from 12, 14, 16, 20+%, do have a lot of risk involved, of course. But still, long term, I think SVOL is going to trade more or less sideways and continue to pay out massive distributions, even if they are a little bit smaller than the most recent. Now, last but not least, as far as one that's going to help you raise your income, and that's definitely been helping me raise my income, QQQI, the NEOS NASDAQ 100 High Income ETF. This one yields almost 14% more or less and has grown around 3.17%. This is since the beginning of this year. So yes, this ETF's price has not exploded since January of this year, but it has been paying massive distributions. We're talking somewhere around 60 cents plus every single month, more or less, which is a massive amount of income for an ETF that costs around $52 per share. Now, if you're interested in cover call style ETFs that track the NASDAQ 100, I would personally say that this ETF is one of my favorites across the entire market that does it. So for those reasons and more, I actually have been grabbing a few more shares of the NEOS NASDAQ 100 High Income ETF over the past few trading days. Still a much smaller position than that of like JEPB, JEPQ, or even SPYI, but this one is a newer holding of mine that I've been sort of gathering some more shares as of recently, which is certainly helping the cause of growing my total yearly and total monthly dividend income substantially. So those are just a few names that as of right now I've been buying some shares of course some more than others, that I'm utilizing to, for the most part, raise my income consistently in my portfolio towards my goal, like I said, of $7,700 per share. Now, just because I'm buying some shares of those does not mean that I'm neglecting the rest of the portfolio. I'm still buying a ton of shares of SHD, I'm buying shares of VIG, etc. And of course, just because I choose to invest into dividend growth stocks, some growth names, and some higher income names, does not mean that it's the right objective for you whatsoever. Every investor out there should have their own strategy and look for different things that make sense for their personal situation. But now to go back to the names that we talked about in this video, if you would have to choose one of them to buy into, only one, which one would it be and why? Drop the ticker symbol in my comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.